Baker Mayfield had indicated to the Bucs that, well, they were going to regret this and that they were going to have to pay. And I've said this before, I hope he means they're going to pay in a money sense, not pay like a mob and mafia sense. But he's determined to go out there and just prove that even with the transition around the Buccaneers, so no Mike Evans, they no longer have Levante David. They've got a bunch of guys, even in Vita Vea, wanting a trade, which the Bucs aren't necessarily going to honor that request. But they've got a bunch of transition and change that Baker still thinks that they can be a team that makes some noise. And so even as he matures, he hasn't lost his bravado, his confidence, his boldness. And I'm glad that he's not in front of the microphones putting the Bucs on blast. Instead, he's all about the we and the us now and what they might do this season.
You get your guys, and it's just the Bucs against everybody else in that city you're going to. And so I think it's a good opportunity for us against the Bengals. And I think we're going to shock a lot of people this year. And so I'm excited to just get on the road and do that.
Anything else?
You're going to surprise people? You say you're going to shock people?
Yeah, I mean, listen, embellish it. There's no embellishing. I think you can't avoid it. There's the TVs everywhere. I think everybody's. Yeah.
Good for you, Baker Mayfield. Also, I feel you when it comes to having to wipe your nose or make some type of sound that not so attractive, and yet there's not really a whole lot you can do. However, you're going to be so proud of me. While you all were listening and watching Baker Mayfield, I was able to open the door and let the dogs, OUT, get out. They were actually anxious to get out because the room is pretty small and they had enough being cooped up. So if you start to hear barking, Tucker, my mom's dog, is still here too. Whatevs. It's just part of working from home and not in a big studio. But back to Baker. He's obviously now settled into, okay, it's a long season. We got a lot of work to do, but don't underestimate us. Don't count us out. And as I go back to the season that was last year for the Bucs, they started out like a house on fire, and then they ended up going through a stretch where, don't quote me on this, it was like 4 or 5 losses in a row. And so they hit the skids with their offense, and they did have some injuries, of course, that can change everything. They had some injuries that kind of derailed what they were able to do offensively and certainly through the air. And so for a bit there, it was really a struggle. It was the obvious problem for Baker Mayfield and his receiving core, or just the passing numbers, that they weren't able to get a whole lot going through the air. And so if they can stay healthy, that changes a lot because this division still is wide open. Last year you had the Panthers, the Buccaneers, the Falcons all finish at 8-9. And then the Saints were a few wins behind that. They were in the basement, but the Saints, there are some people who think they're up and coming, although Alvin Kamara, yet again, injured, MCL injury, and going to be out for at least a month. So he's having trouble staying healthy, but they like their young quarterback and Tyler Shuck, and feeling like now they've handed the reins to him, and Kellen Moore with 1 year of head coaching under his belt. So there's a lot of optimism in that front office. That division's wide open. So in terms of the Buccaneers surprising people, I mean, I will be surprised if they are a Super Bowl contender or if they come out roaring. We'll see, because they've got to navigate a bunch of changes too, and also an unhappy Vita Vea, and the fact that he still has indicated that he wants a trade. But if you got to go through transition, well, the NFC South is the place to do it, where the Panthers won that division last year at just 8-9. Okay, now so contrast that, a veteran quarterback who is kind of over it with the media. He said his piece earlier in preseason or in training camp in which he put the Bucs on blast, and he was animated and he had a lot of passion about how the Bucs are going to have to pay because I'm betting on myself. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I've got something to prove now. And Baker does definitely operate well when he has a major chip on his shoulder. So the Bucs are in a different space than are the Vegas Raiders, but just contrasting the veteran QB that is Baker Mayfield, who's been around the block a bunch and has been both on the upside as well as the downside of the business of football, where he got booted by the Cleveland Browns, had an injury, playing through an injury, numbers went down in what was his third season, right? Maybe I think it was his third season, fourth season, he was still in his rookie contract with the Cleveland Browns. And even though he'd started out like a house on fire, just not playing as well because he was playing with an injury. And of course, the Browns, they're like to eat quarterbacks and spit them out. And so he was struggling there. And the Browns decided to go with Deshaun. So he ends up in Carolina. That doesn't last for a full year. Then he's with the Rams. He has that major Monday Night Football rally in which he leads them on national TV to this big victory in his first game. As Sean McVay likes to say, he'd been with us for all of 5 minutes and somehow managed to lead us on a come from behind track and a big win on Monday Night Football. But then that wasn't going to be the permanent solution, of course, because the Rams had Matthew Stafford. And so he lands post Tom Brady with the Buccaneers. And so he's seen a lot of life in the NFL. And you can see there's definitely that kind of veteran inhibition. Does that make sense? Where he's not going to give you a whole lot. He said his piece already about his contract, but yeah, he's pretty guarded and he's careful, and also he's kind of over it. Well, that's the exact opposite of Fernando Mendoza. And I saw this clip. There's so much we could like about Fernando and his press conferences, but a friend of mine, Sean Pendergast, who is with Houston local radio, sports radio 610, but also the Fan now 95.7, I believe, is their local FM signal as they make the transition. But Sean, a good friend, and I saw this on his social media where he termed this a TED Talk from Fernando Mendoza, because the guy just is so eager and he's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, the opposite of a veteran quarterback like a Baker who's been through so much. He's got a lot of mileage on. Oh no, Fernando is as eager and as excited as they come to get started in the NFL.
Yeah, I would say that it is tough. However, everything that is tough, you wouldn't want something to be easy. If it's tough, it's worth it, and that's why it works at the highest level. And it's great because the teammates, we rely on each other. We rely on the receivers to make the right timing, right route. The receivers rely on the quarterback to throw in the correct timing. The linemen rely on the quarterback to get it out on time. The quarterback rely on the lineman to give them that time to throw it. And then the tight end, there's so many different variables to it. And when we all rely on each other, I believe it makes us closer. And when we become one oiled unit and we have all this synergy and become a dynamic ecosystem where we're evolving together, playing on time, be able to make, and then still make some off-schedule plays, but mostly playing on time, then that's what teams in this system take the next level.
From your perspective.
Seriously, he is so eager and so enthusiastic and so excited and so green. But I'm not laughing at him. I am a huge fan of Fernando Mendoza. I love the fact that he's not jaded by the business. I enjoy hearing from him. And as a young person who certainly has been in that space before, I was going to say young woman. I didn't want you to think I'm terming myself a young woman right now. No, I'm old. But as a young person who can be, who remembers being so exuberant and so excited and so enthusiastic, sometimes now I'm tempered, though I still say that's my calling card. But I remember being in that space with Fernando where, yeah, I everything was still amazing. I was so excited. And whether it was talking about my career and radio and just wanting to share my joy over it, or even going back to my days playing college basketball. It's different when you're younger and you don't have as much experience. And I remember that when I was younger, people called me an optimist. I would not call myself that anymore. As much as I can be an idealist and as much as I can also be naive and not so much a realist, definitely time changes you and you get to be weathered, and your maturity, your experience, that wisdom that comes with it. I hope it doesn't ever take away from my hope. I always want to have hope, but I love his youthful energy and exuberance. And it's just such a contrast with Baker Mayfield, who's much more controlled, who's just kind of, hey, this is part of the deal. And maybe at some point, Fernando gets tired of the microphones in front of his face and feels like, man, the last thing I want to do right now after a practice is talk to somebody about, I don't know, answer this question, answer that question, talk to somebody about the interception I threw, or why our team got pounded again, or what our offense didn't do well, or what happened on the sidelines. But right now, he is so excited to play football, and that bubbles out of him. He's percolating, and he can't wait to get on the football field. And so I'm excited for him. And I know that his debut in the NFL will be a much talked about and much anticipated event. I hope it happens this season. Not that I want Kirk Cousins to get benched, but I'm just anxious for Fernando to get his opportunity in the NFL. But right now he's soaking it all up, and here he is. As I say, my thanks to my friend Sean in Houston, who terms this a TED Talk, because yeah, he's essentially giving you kind of the prototype for team football on the offensive side of the ball, and just yeah, full of energy and enthusiasm, and this is going to be the best day ever. And I hope that the Raiders don't ruin that. I hope that the Raiders don't beat that out of him. I do think Derek Carr was a lot like that when he got to the Raiders, and generally is very much an optimistic person, loves his teammates, finds joy in working with a group of men toward a common goal. But yeah, I mean, the nature of the beast with the Raiders organization changed Derek Carr a bunch too. And so I hope that Fernando is the beginning of a changed and a new era that's being ushered in, where the Raiders do things differently and they're back on the uptick, and it's not as bleak and dark as it's been. I think if anybody can help to lead them into the next era, it would be Fernando Mendoza. And he gets to learn from Tom Brady too, but just a microphone in front of his face, and he gives us all, some tips on how the well-oiled machine is supposed to work. Again, I'm not laughing at him. I'm laughing with him, because I feel like the NFL needs more of that. Grizzled veterans, they don't necessarily approach the media availability with that same exuberance. So good for you, Fernando Mendoza.